Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Next week, the NFL world will descend upon Indianapolis. The NFL Scouting Combine league year not too far away. And word out of New York comes down today that the salary cap is going up. The 2024 salary cap will be $255.4 million. That is an unprecedented $30 million increase per club. It's the result of full repayment of all amounts deferred during the COVID pandemic. Bottom line is a lot of people thought the Browns were going to be 20-some million over before restructuring. They are under before restructuring. Let's welcome in G. Bush from 92.3 The Fans, the Barbershop, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. G. Bush, the Browns front office had a pretty good idea. The cap was going to go up, and they knew at some point that pandemic stuff would go back in. But bottom line is free agency is going to be absolutely crazy because everybody has more money now to spend on free agency with the salary cap going up.
So, yeah, listen, right now it's just like, listen, it's like Christmas that came, a couple months later in February, or a deferred Christmas present. So, right now, and I kind of always said this, sometimes it gets annoying when you have to talk about and people are so like, oh, well, the cap and we can't sign this person and we're going to have to get rid of Nick Chubb and Njoku and we can't get another receiver. So let's just make it Deshaun Watson just has to be, he has to play like Patrick Mahomes or we're done. And you're like, listen, man, if there's one thing that the Cleveland Browns front office does with all their Ivy League education is I'm sure that they know how to finance things, right? If anything, you have Deep Podesta. If anything, you got the Harvard guys and all these guys and the Penn guys, and you got the analytics roster. I've never seen before people go to MIT and tell them how to do rocket science. This is what they're here for. They should be doing gymnastics, mental gymnastics, and numbers, and carrying the one, and creating cap space whenever you want. For me, I've always been a guy that said, listen, people say you don't want to kick the can down the road too many times. I said, listen, man, you got about a 2-year window. I don't want to be morbid, but we look at, there's every day there's a older population of Browns diehard fans that are no longer with us. Don't nobody care about no salary cap. I don't care about none of that. If they need to go ahead, when you signed Deshaun Watson for $230, that means you didn't care about the salary cap either. When you gave up them picks, you wasn't in a 3 to 5 year plan. You was in we need to figure this out right now. And now that the cap is $30 million up, which I think the Browns plan for, now it's an opportunity to do Operation Stockpile. You need some more receivers. You might want to look out on the free agency. And now instead of balling on a budget, you be able to go to Giant Eagle or Dave's or wherever you're at and say, listen, I want to get a case of name brand soda. I want the Coca-Cola. I ain't got to get the Faygo. Now that's what everybody's looking at, right? So now we're going to see if Jimmy has them, going to be able to restructure some stuff, pay somebody up front, move a little cap space. And then we're going to have a real nice offseason speculating here, talking about all the good things that's out there to be had in free agency.
All right, so this one by Dogs by Nature. These are 5 free agents the team should re-sign before the free agency period begins. And it's a little bit earlier. I believe it's the 13th is when they can sign people. They can negotiate on the 11th of March. Mm-hmm. So here we go. We got Maurice Hurst, 2023 salary, $1.08 million. Rodney McLeod, 2023 salary, $1.318 million. The punter, Corey Bojorquez, 2023 salary, $1.325 million. Michael Dunn, some depth at guard, $1.01. And Sione Takitaki, 2023 salary, $2.43 million. G. Bush, you added up, and all those guys, McLeod, Hurst, Takitaki, Bojorquez, it's like $7 million, and you got guys that made some significant contributions.
I would look. I wouldn't be mad at all of those, but there's one guy like McLeod. I don't know. He's a little older. Mm-hmm. I like what Ronnie Hickman gave you in the playoffs. I like what DeAnthony Bell gave you. Maybe they can move on from those guys and give those guys an opportunity to fill that position. But I'm in lockstep with him when it comes to Hurst, Bojorquez, Some of those guys, Taki, to me, those guys are coming in and they're borderline starters, especially for Taki. I thought he had a good year moving from the outside to the inside to the Mike position. I don't think you're gonna be signing Anthony Walker back. So, Bjork has played a really good pivotal role in the special teams last year. So I like all those guys. And Maurice Hurst, if you look at his PFF grade in terms of his pass rush ability, he's a top 10 pass rusher. He graded out as that as a defensive tackle, which is something that's very rare to get that type of pass rush ability from the inside. And you're going to be able to get those guys on the cheap. So if you can go ahead and get those guys out of the way, now you can go ahead and concentrate on some of the big fish that may be available that you can make a splash play in terms of bringing guys in. I mean, even guys now with the new money, you talk about defensive ends, they might be a little bit. You got Josh Allen out of Jacksonville. You got Brian Burns out of, with the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if they're going to be able to sign him. I mean, they could, but at the end of the day, you're looking at a rebuild there. Like, you got a veteran guy, you're going to pay him all that money, or you want to develop your guys. He might be another guy that you can look at. And so now, I bring those guys back and start to fill some of my other positions, and then I could get my splash guys.
Yeah, you got to get the guys at, 1, 2, 2.5 million so that you can go out and do that. And you need guys that contribute like they can. All right, this is a little concerning, and it goes back to what you said about the window. This is from the Bleacher Report. They rank every team's offensive building blocks that are developing players at age 25 or below. So 25 or younger. Lions are 1, Dolphins are 2, Eagles are 3. Borderline, this is borderline block list. So 29 Ravens, 30 the Browns, 31 the Raiders, and 32 the Patriots. Browns rationale is pretty ugly. A lot of questions surrounding offensive tackle Jedrick Wills, 24, leaving 23-year-old receiver Elijah Moore as potentially the top building block within this unit. It kind of goes back to what we were saying. It's you got a couple years left with your skill guy, and that's why you better draft some guys that can contribute in the years coming up. You need Cedric Tillman, you need David Bell, you need guys, and that's the way this front office rolls. You need guys to develop. Year 2, 3.
I did a little bit when I was doing my show, The Ultimate Browns, and I was saying, if you look at the, yardage-wise, the top receivers for the Cleveland Browns, you got guys like Dante Lavelli and Max Speedy, guys that are playing during World War II and black and white pictures, and it's like, man, the Cleveland Browns have not developed any receivers since I've been living. I'm 42. I haven't seen any, even their best receivers in Jarvis and Odell, who had 1,000 yards, guys like that. Those guys came via trade and free agency. You look at Amari Cooper right now. Amari Cooper came via a trade. So when you are in the draft and you miss on an Anthony Schwartz, when you look like David Bell isn't going to give you anything, when you look around and you say, okay, well, who are we developing? Who do we have? And then you got Elijah Moore, who's 23. But I mean, a lot of people are looking at Elijah Moore. He's just he's a serviceable receiver. But you look crazy if you put him at the top of your list as guys that you can build around. He's not a build around type player. I mean, hopefully he can get more out of him next year. But that's what happens when you miss and you miss and you miss and you miss and you don't find a guy. That Puka Nacua is a great example. You got Cooper Kupp, and Cooper Kupp dominated for years, 1,800, 1,600 yards. But guess what? They were able to extend his career because they drafted Puka Nacua. They were able to find a diamond in the rough, and now you don't have to depend on Cooper Kupp as he's aging. You already got another guy. That's the importance of taking a look at Kyron Williams. Think about it at running back. A couple years ago they had Ty Gurley and some of the other guys, and when you can hit and find these dudes and turn them into studs at 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks, you don't have to look at free agency so much. But the Browns are in such a strait that they almost have to go out and overpay for receivers or overpay to get people, because guess what? That's just the age of your roster, and that's just the way your roster turnover is looking right now. They got to be aggressive to get older players and may even have to overpay for them.
All right, these are 3 realistic trade targets for the Browns this offseason. This from Dog Pound Daily. Number 3, they go with offensive tackle Garrett Bush. 1 year left on his deal, due $20 million, 24. If Cleveland were to make this move, they could extend him, and the hit this year could go down. Number 2, Chargers edge rusher Joey Bosa missed time each of the past 2 seasons. Still a force when he's on the field. 6.5 sacks, 9 games this year. For Cleveland, it would be good enough for second on the team behind Myles Garrett. Number 1, wide receiver Courtland Sutton. Past season, Sutton 10 touchdowns, 772 yards. Excellent at pulling down contested catches. Would be worth to have the 6'4", 216-pounder opposite of Amari Cooper. G-Bush, I look at those. I don't know about you. Bulls, not really interested in. Bosa, maybe. I like the idea of Sutton if you can get him for, if you don't have to give up too much to get him. I'm interested in that.
If they talking 5s or 5th round picks, 4s, maybe a deferred 4 or something like that, I'll take it. But you still would need something else to go with that. That's a starter like that. You go to, when you paying all that money and you go to a 5-star Michelin star restaurant, I'm looking for the full course here. I'm looking for the starters. I need salad. I need a dessert. I need to have a good piece of meat, a nice steak. I need to have some side. That's all. I need the whole thing. If you get Sutton, that's a nice move. But I still would be in free agency saying, oh, okay, who's available? Is Marquise Hollywood? Can we get Pittman? What does Mike Evans look like on a shorter deal? And I'm not interested in Bowles, because here's the thing. You need to find 3 guys to play 2. Either it's Conklin, DeJuan Jones, or Jedrick Wills. 3 of y'all guys is competing. I need 2 of y'all to show up to play the other position. I can use the other one as a depth tackle, and you can't cut Conklin because he just got a deal. The cap penalties are crazy. DeJuan Jones looks like the guy that may end up taking that position, but we don't know what Jed Wills is going to look like coming back off injury either. So I'm okay with the tackle. I'm not interested in going to get another lineman. I'm willing to take a look at Joey Bosa. The injuries, disturb me a little bit, but I'm not going to be mad if they go out and say, let's get Joey Bosa and put him out instead of Myles Garrett. We just have to hope we can get 10, 12 games out of him. And that's my new bench, and that's my new, line where we talk about, all right, well, guys are going to get injured. Everybody's going to get injured. If I can get you 12 games, 13 games out of Bosa, I'll take it.
All right, before we go to break, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Everybody has been going back and forth about what this offense needs. We need a big body wide receiver. We need a running back for Chubb. We need a second tight end. In my honest opinion, we just need to get valuable weapons, no matter which position, no matter what size. It shouldn't matter. For Ken Dorsey and Kevin Stefanski to be successful this year, they just need weapons, people who they can use as gadget players, slot players. We have a really special team, and we have a really good staff to be creative enough to get players into space. And at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter who we get as long as they can contribute to this offense and give us a chance to win football games.
G-Bush, I think you're kind of looking at the profile, though, of, when you say a big-bodied receiver, those are the guys that have had the most success with Deshaun Watson. You think of DeAndre Hopkins. And you could say Fuller. Fuller was more of a, the home run hitter every other game, every third game.
Yeah, and look, here's the way I look at it. When you got smallish receivers, I think people don't understand that puts an extra strain, and it puts an extra little something on difficulty on hitting those receivers. There's so many times where you watch Elijah Moore, and they would throw the ball, and Elijah Moore, the ball would be inches off of his hands, or it would be a couple of centimeters here. He'd be diving and can't come up with the catch. When you deal with somebody who does not have a large catch radius, who does not have a long wingspan, who does not have the ability to high point, jump up 40-inch vertical, go get the football, come down, that makes your quarterback's job hard. Those plays where you want to extend the play, and those plays where you throw it to a receiver, he breaks a tackle, and instead of it being 5 yards to 7 yards and you move the sticks, those are the small things that people don't take in consideration when they're looking at smallish type receivers. I don't agree with the fact that it doesn't matter where they come from. If you look at it, if Deshaun Watson is going to be in a passing situation where the Browns want to throw it 65, 70% of the time, and you don't have Nick Chubb to turn around and hand the ball to, there's no way that you can say that you're comfortable with this receiving core when you don't have a real vertical threat. Amari Cooper is a good tactician and route runner. He's not necessarily what I would call a guy that's going to run away from anybody or stretch the field. So it's like, yeah, you got to get a receiver. Like, we got to get over the fact that, yes, you need receivers. Don't be scared of them, people. I know we haven't developed them, but when you go look at Miami and they got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and it's tough to keep talking about how we could just move and move around and circumvent receivers. It's not that. You got to get a receiver.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Browns offense and wide receivers. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Go ahead and pop a clamp on that. Let's take 5. With one of these 5 Lady Luck scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery, like this new $20 100X with its $1 million grand prize, I want to get my cut of that 76% payout.
So, good news. We're playing the largest family of scratch-offs ever. These Lady Lucks have all the fun and no complications.
We continue talking Browns with G. Bush from 92.3 The Fan and the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
You have an enormous amount of the Cleveland Browns fan base that are absolutely puked and disgusted with this whole Deshaun Watson situation. And deep down inside, it is so obvious that you guys don't truly feel about Deshaun Watson the way that you're doing damage control. The guy has played a good game and a half. It's facts. A spread offense in Cleveland on Lake Erie with 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts is not going to work. Cleveland have to have a big, strong quarterback that can cut through the air and run the football. Unless we have a dome, that's what we've got to have. And I know you guys don't like answering these questions, but it just is what it is. Man, you guys do a great job, but let's try to call a spade here.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. G. Bush, I've seen Deshaun Watson's arm. His arm's pretty good. I don't know where this narrative that he doesn't have a strong arm is from. The other thing is, it's the modern NFL. If you're not throwing the football, you're not playing to what the rules are allowing you to do. 3 of the final 4 teams, Chiefs, the Lions, and the Niners, were in the top 6 in passing yards. It's not line up and knock the guy senseless. They're trying to get away from that with the rules. So does Deshaun Watson need to play better? Absolutely.
It's just to a point where it's like, I think people believe that we are in another age. We're not. And I get it. And the thought process that, Deshaun Watson has played 11 football games for the Cleveland Browns. 11. Baker Mayfield played 60. You could go back and look at Brian Hoyer played almost 20 games. You can look at Brandon Weeden, who played in 2 years over 20-some-odd games. So I get the fact that people, because of the fact that we didn't draft him, and because of some of the things that he came with in the contract. I think that we've all also sped up the timetables. Let's be clear. The reason we had to get Deshaun Watson was because we missed on a quarterback number 1 overall. And I think a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that, and they want to feel like, okay, well, we got to hurry up and fix this. We got to hurry up and do it. Yes, is the clock ticking? Sure. But let's go back and just be clear. It took you 60 games to figure out Baker Mayfield wasn't the guy you want. And whether you like it or not, when you miss on a first-round quarterback and you miss, there are consequences to that. And the consequences are you did have to go find the franchise quarterback with an aging roster and pieces and parts. And what happens is you get to a point where you say, I got to spend $230 on him. I got to go pay 3 draft picks on him, because you don't have the luxury of drafting and saying, okay, well, let's hope our first round quarterback plays well. And you see what happened in Nick Chubb. Injuries are part of the game. You see people talk about Myles Garrett. He's slowing down in the second part of the year, G. Bush. Amari Cooper wasn't able to play in that playoff game because he had injuries. That's what happens when you get older. And the Browns had to make that decision. Now, when it comes to whether or not he played well or one game, the Baltimore Ravens were a pretty good team, and he beat the Baltimore Ravens with a tore up shoulder and a tore up ankle. I guess the main thing that we got to take away from this is this: Deshaun Watson is going to be here. So you can either do one or two things. You can keep saying that you don't think he's worth it, or you don't think that he's going to do it, or whatever the case may be, or you could do everything in your possibility, your strength as a Cleveland Browns organization to take any excuses out of it. If we're going to throw it 70 times, we're going to play to the strengths of his ability. We're going to get you another receiver. We're going to get you another running back to mix with Nick Chubb. We're going to keep the defense solid. All of those are the things that you need to do. And by the way, if you think you're going to beat Patrick Mahomes by coming out here running the ball 35, 40 times a game, you're sadly mistaken.
Yep.
It's just he's the Michael Jordan of this thing. Stop.
And before anybody starts with the Baker Mayfield things, yes, he's going to sign a contract with the Buccaneers, and they'll pay him. But remember, he wanted $35 million a year from the Browns. That was the number that was going around. He hasn't made $35 million in all the stops that he's had since then. And he isn't going to make it even when you add the Buccaneers contract that he's going to sign. So I'm glad Baker Mayfield has revitalized his career. I've said all along I think he's an NFL quarterback, but I don't think he's an elite NFL quarterback. So I want to preemptively strike the messages I'm going to get about Baker Mayfield.
The message is coming.
They're coming. I know they are. All right, this from USA Today. One big-name free agent for all 32 NFL teams. For the Browns, I don't know how big this name is. They go Darnell Mooney. Cleveland needs a reliable intermediate threat who can operate within a shaky quarterback situation. Who better than Mooney? 1,000-yard season with the Bears 2021. His ability to adjust to the ball made him sort of a comedian's comedian among NFL current wideouts, stabilizing presence for the Browns offense. Wow. Backhanded compliment there for Darnell Mooney as well. I don't know if Mooney, he's got some speed. He's more of a guy that you kind of add to what you have.
That's Elijah. We already got him. It's Elijah Moore.
Yeah.
Like, we got that dude. Like, you know, the Browns got to do something. They got, look, you know, it'd be funny. The national media be getting y'all, man. You know, have you ever noticed that when it comes to one of them big market teams, they want the splash. Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley. You need to be Michael Pittman. We need to get those guys in here. And then when it comes to the Browns, they float these names out: Bowles and at tackle and Mooney. And then when the season gets here, I don't know what's wrong with Deshaun Watson. He's not throwing. You know, the offense looks anemic. Yeah, because you try to talk us into getting Darnell Mooney like he was a splash guy. Let's stop the games. He is not on nobody's free agent list at all. That is a bottom of the barrel move. That is something that teams like, I don't know, the Chicago Bears argue over. Like, they argue over, is Mooney a good guy? The Arizona Cardinals talk about whether or not that. No, we are looking at 2-year window, and I keep going back to say it. You tell me what quarterback is in the AFC is not potent. We keep going over Herbert and Jackson and Mahomes and Burrows coming back and then here's the thing too. I'm scared like this. What if Minnesota decides they don't even want to bring back Kirk Cousins and the Steelers get him? Huh? Yo, I don't want no parts of Kirk Cousins in this division with the Steelers, being a professional and throwing for 4,000 yards like he always do in the regular season. No, we need to continue to fight in battle and get the top-notch guys. I need you at least to give me, let me see. Cortland Sutton that's as low as I'm going. I'm not going to Mooney.
So here's the other thing. So we know the Browns have had trouble developing a quarterback. We did something last week. They have drafted one wide receiver since 2012 in the first round. That was Corey Coleman. That didn't work out. In the second round, it was Greg Little and then Josh Gordon in the supplemental draft would have been a second rounder. Third round is the earliest they've gotten it. Again, it's a passing league. If you haven't developed a quarterback and you haven't developed wide receivers, that's why we've struggled as a franchise for as long as we have.
It's almost like people feel like you're going to get extra credit, right? Like you're going to get a bunch of extra credit if Deshaun Watson, if he throws, think about it, if he throws for, say, 4,500 yards and he says, you know what, look, he made everybody around him better. But then you get to the real games, the Josh Allen games, the Patrick Mahomes games, and all these other games where you may need to be in a dogfight. You may need to put up 40 points to beat one of these teams. And yet and still you come away and you lose that game and say, well, at least we know that Deshaun Watson can make people around him better, but you're still losing. It's not about Deshaun Watson making people better. I don't care about that. I want that trophy. And people don't understand how hard it is to get that trophy when not only are you not developing, but other teams are. Like Rashee Rice, he's a pretty good player. You think Rashee Rice isn't going to be better next year? He's a Super Bowl champ. He's their number one receiver. They're developing guys, right? Pickens down in Pittsburgh, they're developing guys. When you don't develop and then you still don't want to go get nobody, you're not going to win. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to work.
G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, G. Bush.
Appreciate you.
G. Bush, make sure you check him out. 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, 8 until noon on Saturdays. You can also catch him Monday through Friday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Lance Reisland joins us. Film breakdown, video analysis of some free agent linebackers the Browns might be interested in. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Time for some video analysis, film breakdown. Whenever we do that, we welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Lance, Combine getting underway in early next week. That means the beginning of the league year and free agency not far behind. Let's start by taking a look at some free agent linebackers and kind of who the Browns might target and look at.
Well, the good thing about the Browns is that their number one target should be right in their building. Sione Takitaki, very, very good player. He's played everywhere on the defensive, on that defensive side of the ball, in space, in the box. He can cover well in zone, he can cover well in man. Jacob Phillips is another guy who's had tremendous injury issues. He's only played in 20 games, but when he's played, he's showed some success. I'm not sure if they're going to keep him because of the injury issues, but he's a guy now that fits this scheme. And if you think about JOK, if you think about Sione Takitaki, these are aggressive guys. And these are guys that like to play downhill. The thing about Sione Takitaki is it's a guy who has some weight on him, almost 240 pounds, so he can play in box a little bit more and take on those double teams a little bit more than JOK can. But just like JOK, they are both downhill guys that like to take what they see and pull the trigger and go. And both guys are very successful. I think both guys can anchor this defense for a long time if Sione Takitaki signs.
All right, you mentioned Sione Takitaki, projected to be about a $4 or $5 million a year kind of guy in free agency. Take us through this first clip and what you see here.
Well, this is classic what Jim Schwartz is going to give you, right? So this is going to be, he's going to read the deuce double team on Jordan Elliott here on the right side of the screen. And Elliott's going to do a good job of taking on both of that double team, holding on to that guard a little bit. And Sione Takitaki, once he sees that deuce double, his job is to get downhill right now and not allow that left guard to get up on him and chest him up. So he does a really good job of reading the double, pulling the trigger, and making a tackle. Very, very explosive in a short area. 40 times okay, but he is very good from 0 to 5, which is what you need to be as a linebacker. So, again, very good play, reads his keys, and gets downhill.
The other thing is he showed some versatility the way the Browns used him this season as well. All right, take us through this next clip, what you see with Sione Takitaki here, what you like.
Well, what I like here is that when the Browns, even over the last 3 or 4 years, but very common in the NFL, when teams are going to go 21 personnel, 12 personnel, and they're going to put a lot of people in the box, the defenses are going to do the same. And the Browns are very tough to block. Got a lot of different guys inside. You're going to see Sione Takitaki at the one linebacker here to the play side. And the Raiders are going to run a power, and they're actually going to block out with the tight end and lead the fullback up with Sione Takitaki. What he does a really good job of right there is taking out with his right shoulder, leaving his left shoulder free, which forces the running back to cut back inside. He doesn't need to make the play he's already made a really good play. By getting off the block here, making the tackle, it's a great play. And he does this a lot. He's he's a guy who had 66 total tackles, a number of sacks, passes defended, etc. He's just a really good all-around football player. And matched with JOK with that size, he's a really good fit in there.
All right, the next guy that we're going to look at, probably a little bit higher price, Devin White, Tampa Bay. He's projected to make about twice what Takitaki is. 10 to 11 million is what the projected total for Devin White is. Take us through this first clip, what you see here from White.
Well, he's a guy who's had 83 total tackles. He's been a tackling machine for a long time. He had 2.5 sacks this year, 5 tackles for a loss, 6 passes defended, 2 interceptions. What he does really, really well, you'll see him number 45 at the Mike linebacker inside. He runs sideline to sideline. He can cover in zone, he can cover in man, but he's another guy very similar to what Schwartz likes, and guys who are downhill, and when they read their keys, they believe in their keys, and they get downhill. He's a veteran guy. He's a guy, he's a little bit up there in age in terms of NFL numbers. I'm not sure if the Browns are willing to pay for him. The market's not huge for linebackers, and like I said before, I think Takitaki is this version, but this guy is a really, really good football player, and he's a guy who's going to be on the market, and the Browns are in the windows are short in the NFL, and you like to say this guy is overpriced or whatever it may be, but the Browns are in their window right now to win, and if they feel that they can get a guy that can help them get over the top, a guy like White would be that guy. He's a guy who is perennial pro. He can cover, he can tackle, he can play in the box, he can cover tight ends, he can cover backs, play in zone. He's a great leader. He's a vocal leader. He's violent. He's a guy that you really, really like on that defense, and he's a guy that stood out. He's a guy that has stood out for the Buccaneers for years.
All right, the other thing that we see in this next clip is you can use him in a couple of different ways. Take us through this next clip and what you see here.
He does a really good job. You're going to see it right at the beginning of the play. You're going to see him bluff like he's going to retreat, and he's going to come on a blitz. He's an outstanding blitzer. And to be an outstanding blitzer in the NFL, at all levels of football, but especially in the NFL, you have to know that at times you're going to get picked up and you're going to get violently knocked to the ground. It doesn't matter for a guy like White. He just comes. Like I said, he's a fantastic blitzer. He's really well-rounded. He's a JOK type in terms of he can cover in space. He can come off the edge. He can come in A-gap. He can cover multiple positions. He's just an all-pro type of guy with all-pro type of skills at all levels. He's a guy that will take that really good Browns defense and make it even better.
All right, the third and final free agent potential linebacker we'll look at, Willie Gay, Kansas City, the guy, again, that has a lot of big game experience. Take us through this first clip and what we see from Willie Gay here.
So for me, I'm all about film, so I don't really get into the too much of the money being spent. I just talk about guys on film who are a good fit. However, with money, this is a guy that might fit. This is a really, really good football player. What I like about him is he does a lot of things that the Browns defense does really well, but he would give the Browns a little bit of size in there. Teams who are going to, still the ultimate goal if you're going to beat the Browns is you got to get to those linebackers with those big offensive linemen and get somebody on JOK and get somebody on Taki because they're not the biggest guy. Willie Gay is about 245 pounds, 255 pounds and can really run. So this is him. This is classic what the Browns do on 3rd and long. They're going to play zone, and then they expect to come up and make tackles on backs and tight ends. And he does this very well. He's a very vocal guy. He's a leader. I watched a bunch of stuff of him mic'd up. He's always communicating with his teammates. Again, I think he'd be a great fit. As good as the Browns defense is, they're still young, and they still could use another couple vocal leaders in there to help them get over the top.
All right, this next clip, kind of take us through what you see here and what you like with Willie Gay in this second clip.
Well, he's a guy who he's the route. He recognizes routes here. So what he's going to see as a linebacker, if you watch the play as it rewinds over and over, you're going to see the running back is going to swing to the left. And as the running back swings to the left, that tells the linebacker that there's an in-breaking route by the number 1 receiver on the outside. So we used to call this route recognition during practice, where you're going to read your key, and your key should take you to the next key. And football's not it's complex, but, it's still basic, right? So if a guy goes out, a guy is going in. And with that guy swinging to the boundary here, it tells Willie Gay that there's a slant coming. And he does a great job of getting into his drop and getting underneath the slant. But this is great route recognition. This tells you he watches film. This tells you attention to detail, all the things that make a really good NFL linebacker. So this is really impressive, understanding what he's seeing and breaking on the football.
All right, and our final clip with Willie Gay. Take us through what you see here and what you like with this one.
Well, you're going to see him. So this is going to be a version of one-back power, and you're going to see it as the play starts over. You're going to see the tight end on the top of the screen at the top of the formation. He's going to get through, and he's going to try to get to Willie Gay and block him down. But Willie Gay, being 245 pounds, he blows this tight end right back up into the backfield and makes the play. So not only is he good in space, but he's also good at the line of scrimmage. He's going to read that double, and again, he's going to attack the tight end. And the key for any linebacker to take that check step is that you have to attack that offensive lineman or that tight end coming at you. You cannot let them get to you first, or you're blocked. And Willie Gay does a great job of reading the tight end, taking it on with the correct shoulder again, and for his teammates, and then making the play. Just a really good play. He's a really good linebacker. I think this guy, besides even with Sione Takitaki, I think this guy makes a lot of sense to be in a Cleveland Browns uniform.
All right, so there are a couple of free agent linebackers to listen out for. New league year starts in a couple of weeks in March. It's a week earlier this year, so we'll listen out and see what names we hear attached to the Cleveland Browns. Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good video analysis, film breakdown for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Sports4CLE, and be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Quan. Quarterback play for Kevin Stefanski, the head coach and things like that. Ever since he's been here, it almost seems like he's been plugged in with the quarterback, but it never seemed like he ever actually chose his own quarterback. And I was just wondering, like, when will they give him the chance to single-handedly pick out the quarterback that he feels will run his offense perfect, or, you know, to the ability that he's looking for. He inherited Baker, he inherited Watson, he inherited Brissett. You know, when will he be able to actually pick his franchise quarterback? It's just a topic I was wondering if you guys like to speak on. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. You know, he did inherit Baker Mayfield. He was part of the recruiting pitch to Deshaun Watson. If you go back and think about it, he was the one that kind of brought the cut-ups of the offense of how he would coach Watson up. And it's one of the reasons Watson came here. Coaches don't get to pick their quarterbacks by and large, and they're married together. So I get the thought, but it's the head coach's job to figure out how to maximize the quarterback. Kevin Stefanski's been really good at it. I mean, Baker Mayfield had career years, and then he got hurt. Jacoby Brissett played really well. Watson's been hurt. Watson, you know, had the 11-game suspension, so he got 6 games after not having played in like 700 days or whatever it was. And then he only got 5 games, and it was play 2 games, injured, play 3 games, injured, and he missed the rest of the year. So I think Kevin Stefanski's kind of looking forward to working with Deshaun Watson. I think without question, he has the most talent. You know, Kirk Cousins has been a better than average NFL quarterback, but I don't think many people would argue in terms of arm talent and the ability to make plays. Deshaun Watson will be the best quarterback that Kevin Stefanski gets to work with. Question is, can he get him on the field for an entire season and see where that develops? Well, we have talked a lot about acquiring wide receivers. How do the Browns go about it? Few people would argue they need to upgrade the receiving core. Amari Cooper has been great. You had the 4 quarterbacks, 5 if you count Jeff Driscoll. So you didn't get consistent play from guys like Elijah Moore. You know, Cedric Tillman, David Bell were okay, but you want to see them take a step forward. Marquise Goodwin was injured. A name that keeps circulating as somebody that might be available is Brandon Ayuk from the San Francisco 49ers. They have a decision coming up to make on him. Do they pay him? He's going to be at the level where they're going to have to pay a significant chunk of change. And keep in mind, they have Christian McCaffrey, they have Deebo Samuel. You're going to have to pay Brock Purdy at some point. So there's a decision looming for Brandon Ayuk. And he's a guy that's ascending. You know, he had over 1,000 yards receiving, and they do have the surplus there in San Francisco. So that could be a target. If he's available, you could definitely see, you know, Andrew Berry trying to go to work and finding a match there that would work to acquire Brandon Ayuk. He would be a nice complement to potentially Amari Cooper as you see Ayuk running routes and doing things. Again, the 49ers could elect to pay him. That is to be determined. Certainly the salary cap going up $30 million that we told you earlier in the show, that salary cap will be over $255 million next season. So there is money that could become available for San Francisco to tie up the talented wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk. All right, this from the 33rdteam.com. So those are former personnel guys and guys that have worked in the NFL. This is ranking every offensive play caller entering the 2024 season. They have Kyle Shanahan listed as number 1, Sean McVay number 2, Andy Reid of the 49ers 3, Mike McDaniel 4, Matt LaFleur of Green Bay 5, Sean Payton of Denver 6, Kevin O'Connell of Minnesota 7, and Shane Steichen, first-year head coach of Indianapolis 8th. Then they have Kevin Stefanski, Ken Dorsey 9th. They have some of the rationale when you watch film. It's hard not to be impressed by Stefanski. He has so perfectly crafted the offense to each quarterback's needs. Stefanski's run game is the best part of his call sheet. Well-versed in zone and gap runs and can adapt his scheme to whichever is the best in the moment. It's kind of interesting. So a lot of those guys are younger and inexperienced. Guys like Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, Shane Steichen, newer to it. I think it's fair to have Stefanski in the top 10. I might move him up a little bit. Play calling, frequent viewers of the show know everybody has an opinion about play calling, and a lot of Browns fans don't like Kevin Stefanski's play calling. Simple fact of the matter is he's had quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, like Jacoby Brissett. Take any of the pick of them that you've had, this year. Joe Flacco, he has had guys have career years when he has been calling plays for him. Kirk Cousins, back in Minnesota, he seems to have the ability to play to a quarterback's strength. It's one of the reasons that people that we've had on our show, like Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter, want to see him call plays for Deshaun Watson, because Watson, in theory, has the most talent of any quarterback that he'll have the ability to work with. So it'll be interesting to see Ken Dorsey, Andy Dickerson, Kevin Stefanski come up with an offense that kind of maximizes the strengths of a Deshaun Watson. And that's why they went out and got Ken Dorsey. He has the ability to call plays and has the experience with mobile quarterbacks like a Josh Allen and like a Cam Newton. All right, so some roster dilemmas for the Browns. It's kind of interesting. What do they do at tackle? You've got Jack Conklin. When he's healthy, he is really good. Problem is, he's getting on the other side of 30, and he hasn't been healthy the last 2 seasons. Has had pretty significant injuries, and it's a brutal job playing tackle in the NFL. It's physical, and you get beat up. And the question is, can Jack Conklin stay healthy? If he can, really good right tackle. Jedrick Wills, he's been an average left tackle. Now, some Browns fans will push back on that, say he's been below average. You can't take into account that the Browns took him. It's not fair to judge what he is based on where he was drafted. He was drafted 10th. He hasn't lived up to that. Wouldn't argue that. He's been an above average left tackle in the NFL. Average to above average, not nearly as bad as some Browns fans want to make it out to be. He needs to play better. When you are the 10th pick in the draft, you kind of feel like he hasn't lived up to what he might be. Now, he's been injured a couple of times too, and that's the other part of it. And the dilemma is now, you have DeJuan Jones, who played really well. He is on the all-rookie team and has outperformed his draft stock. And you got 3 guys, and you have to figure out where you're going to get DeJuan Jones. You want DeJuan Jones in there because he's on his rookie contract. Jedrick Wills, they already picked up the 5th-year option. So is there a trade to be made? Conklin, they take a pretty big cap hit because they just extended him. So the trade hit they would take on the salary cap is still pretty significant. But again, that's something that the Browns will have to work out. Is there a way to restructure Jack Conklin's deal to bring that cap number down and move it around? Those will all be things that the Browns will have to work out. All right, so a familiar name for Browns fans, Emmanuel Ogbah. Doesn't appear that the increased salary cap by $30 million will entice the Dolphins to keep Ogbah on the roster. Dolphins plan to release Ogbah. Miami signed him to a 4-year, $65 million deal after he posted back-to-back 9-sack seasons a couple of years ago, 2020, 2021. They can save about $13.7 million against the cap by releasing him. That's what they plan to do. It will be interesting. The scheme fit isn't great, but it would be interesting to see if Agba is a guy that Andrew Berry and the Browns decide they might want to try to bring back. Again, all those questions will start to be answered as we get closer to the league year. March 11th is when things get going relative to free agent talks. They can sign them on the 13th. Of course, everything gets underway next week in Indianapolis, the NFL Scouting Combine. It will get underway Tuesday. We will have Sports4CLE shows from the Scouting Combine Tuesday and Wednesday. Andrew Berry scheduled to speak, as is Kevin Stefanski. We'll also be talking a lot about some of the draft prospects. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, NFL.com's Daniel Jeremiah with some names to listen out for the Browns when they pick in that second round. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Here comes the rush.
All right, everybody, let's take 5. With one of these 5 Lady Luck scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery.
Like the $10 Lady Luck 50X. It's got prizes all the way up to 500 grand, so you could really clean up.
The Lady Luck family of scratch-offs is the Ohio Lottery's first ever, with 5 price points from $1 to 20. They're an easy way to cook up some fun.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. The NFL Scouting Combine gets underway in Indianapolis next week. Everything gets going on Tuesday, and Sports4CLE will be in Indianapolis with the shows Tuesday and Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So join us then. Plenty of national guests, as well as we'll hear from Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and talk to a lot of the people that cover the Browns regularly. One of the guys getting ready for the Scouting Combine, NFL Network's draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah. He talked about the draft prospects for the Browns with that second-round pick.
Second round grouping, if we're looking at the Cleveland Browns, I mean, you're looking at some D tackles, maybe some linebackers. So if I look in that range, second round defensive tackles, Braden Fisk is one that I really, really like from Florida State, who transferred out of the MAC. He's a really, really good player. He's going to test like a freak too. He'll test well at the combine, but real quick, shoots gaps, effort chase. He can play every position. He finds the ball. He's got really good instincts. Not real long, but a good player. Had a great week at the Senior Bowl, so he's one in that mix. You look at an intriguing guy with Mason Smith from LSU, who doesn't have a ton of production, but he's 6'6", 310 pounds. Really good as a freshman, or really good his first year. Wasn't, coming off an ACL last year, didn't quite see the same player, but has some quickness, has some traits. Just get him fully healthy. I think there's kind of an upside play there with a guy like that. So those are a couple D tackles. The linebackers in that second round range. I think Colson, who we talked about from Michigan, probably in there, who's just real instinctive, plays downhill, can cover tight ends. He was hurt. He was beat up a lot this year, played through it at Michigan, kind of show you the toughness and the leadership that you want there from that position. And Peyton Wilson from NC State kind of remind me of Kiko Alonso coming out of college, but wrestling background, has had some injuries, but really, really instinctive, ton of speed, ton of range, just a really good player. So those two positions in the second round range, that's some intriguing names for me.
Again, that's Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network's draft analyst, talking about guys that would be value picks where the Browns might be, or where the Browns are scheduled to pick. Of course, everyone knows Andrew Berry could move up, could move back, has done both in the drafts. I would be surprised if they take a linebacker. You got to look at Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and that's not a position they have historically taken early in drafts. I know Koramoah, the exception to that. Defensive tackle maybe, edge maybe. They need to find some young playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. You got Amari Cooper, and David Njoku is still, 26, 27, I think is what he is now. But you need some of the younger wide receivers. They've invested in Tillman and David Bell. You need to get younger and kind of fill in. But the one thing that Andrew Berry has shown is he's going to target not necessarily positions, but guys he thinks can develop. Martin Emerson, a cornerback in the third round, a perfect example, and that will be the play that they make. This from the Bleacher Report. NFL prospects with the most to gain at the scouting combine. They go Braylon Allen. That is a running back from Wisconsin, and he's a name to keep an ear out for relative to the Browns. A young guy, so fits the age guardrails perfectly. Browns like to draft young because then you get a second contract in the late 20s before they hit 30s. Look at David Njoku is a perfect example of that. But back to Allen. 2023 campaign didn't go quite as planned. Had back-to-back 1,200-yard rushing campaigns. He found himself sharing the Badgers' backfield and essentially serving as the team's backup until Chez Malushi suffered a season-ending leg injury. And Allen was actually really good, a very physical runner. So it's interesting to see if he tests as well as Bleacher Report here thinks he might. That's a guy that could help his stock. That's a guy I would keep an ear out for, though. Running style could be very much what the Browns like. 6'2", 235 pounds. Has been productive and is very, very strong. Another guy, in frequent viewers of the show know we've talked about this guy. Roman Wilson had a huge week, Senior Bowl week. Ran a 4.33 40 out of a 2-point stance. Combine that with a 6.20 second 3-cone drill, 3.77 short shuttle time. For comparison's sake, final two numbers would be scouting combine records if Wilson can duplicate those. Not a big-bodied guy, but a really good athlete. The Browns value the RAS, relative athletic score. My guess is Roman Wilson's RAS is going to be off the charts. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, in fact, set those records at the combine, and it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. He doesn't have a lot of production because Michigan didn't throw the ball a ton. They ran the ball and they had that big offensive line, and that took them to the national championship. Buckeye fans know that. All right, question, should the Browns trade Greg Newsome? Well, with the salary cap coming out, and again, the salary cap is up to $255.4 million. It's a $30 million increase. It's an unprecedented increase. That means the fifth-year option numbers for players are out. So if the Browns want to pick up Greg Newsome's fifth-year option, it wouldn't be next year, it's the following year, $13.3 million is what it would cost them. So, that's not a bad deal for a pretty good cornerback. Cornerbacks are expensive. You see up at the top of this list, Alex Leatherwood was taken 17th overall. They did not pick up the option on him. He was released by the Raiders. He's now on the Browns practice squad. So that's kind of another name to keep an ear out for, Alex Leatherwood, relative to the Browns. If they can find a way to develop that guy, that's a guy that was a first-round pick and just has not played up to that level. But again, that is a low-risk, high-reward move for the Browns. But the question with Greg Newsome, you pick up the option because Greg Newsome has the skills to be a starting caliber cornerback in the NFL. And at $13.3 million, yeah, then the question becomes, you're going to end up having to pay Martin Emerson, and he doesn't have a fifth-year option because he was not a first-round pick. So you have to pay him a year earlier. My guess is Martin Emerson is that outside corner, that number one type corner. The question is, can you afford to pay? You still have Ward on his contract. You probably can't afford to pay all three of them. The question becomes, what can you get for Greg Newsome? And if you can get a second-round pick, you certainly do it. I don't know if you do it for a third-round pick. Andrew Berry has gotten pretty good with trading and making trades. Is there an offensive player that intrigues a team enough to trade a player for player? Not very common in the NFL, but things seem to be changing relative to the dynamic for trades in the NFL. Either way, you drafted a good player in Greg Newsome. You certainly pick up the fifth-year option, and then from there, you kind of figure out how that secondary pieces together. Those are good problems to have. You have too many good cornerbacks, every GM and every head coach will take that problem. It'll play out, but I would certainly expect the Browns to pick up Greg Newsome's fifth-year option at 13.3, and then they figure out how that roster goes together after that point. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. Just a reminder, next Tuesday and Wednesday, Sports for CLE will come to you from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. Plenty of Browns news and NFL news from Indianapolis. That is on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Have a great weekend. We will see you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.